GM Foxes, how are you guys doing today? It's been a busy day, right? I've personally been in a lot of back-to-back since like 9 a.m. this morning, but all really good meetings that I've been happy to be a part of. And I'm looking forward to this one. So thanks everyone for joining. We're here today for a community call with Bancor. TFNS, you are here to represent Bancor, correct?
Yeah, that's correct. Hi.
Hey, how are you doing?
Great. Yeah, thank you. How are you?
Best day ever. Thanks for joining us today. Looking forward to talking with an awesome protocol such as Bancor about possible collaboration. Before we dive into it, is there anyone else from the Bancor team that we're expecting to join?
I think it will be me. There might be some community members. The trading liquidity limit. This is a limit that our DAO sets based on a target liquidity that we want to see and liquidity elsewhere. It's basically just a risk assessment that we do. The protocol will then mint this BNT, and the BNT is owned by the protocol and just sort of acts like a liquidity provider, just like any other LP. So it accrues fees, and those fees, instead of as an LP, the protocol would take, instead of doing that, the protocol uses this as one of the ways to pay out for impermanent loss. So what this essentially means is if you're staked on Bancor, you don't have to sell your Fox tokens, and also you don't have to worry about impermanent loss. You can worry about all of the other risks that you already take in from staking on any platform, be it smart contract risk or even the price volatility that we all are familiar with. These are the main features that are already present on the v2.1, which is the current version. We have now a proposal on our governance to launch Bancor 3 fully on the 11th of May, so that's in a week. We're currently running our beta right now, so we've noticed that we don't need to run it for longer. We've already done enough risk analysis, and we have 4 audits on the way. And we think that we can finish the beta early, so there's a proposal to see if the Bancor DAO is willing to do so. And Bancor 3 will still offer these features, but in a different way. So right now, for our impermanent loss protection, if anyone here staked on Bancor, you might be familiar with the vesting schedule that we have. So your impermanent loss protection is accrued over time. Essentially, at 100 days, you get 100% of the protection from then on. And this is something that will change on Bancor 3. So on Bancor 3, you get instant impermanent loss protection. This means that from the moment you're staked, you don't have to wait any days. You can just get the protection right there and then, with 2 caveats that we have implemented mainly for security to prevent backrunning exploits, etc. And those are a 7-day cooldown period. So something similar that we see on other protocols. The 7-day cooldown period essentially means that when you unstake, the value of your stake with the fees and rewards and the liquidity that you initially staked is what you will be unstaking at the end of the cooldown period. The minimum is 7 days, but you can do so after 30 days. It just means that from the moment you've started the cooldown period, that's what you'll get when you unstake. Which also means that during this period, all of the fees and rewards that you would have gotten, you forfeit those, and they all go back to the LPs that have stayed in the pool. You can always come back if you want to, and it's as if you had never started the cooldown period. It's a mechanism that we've implemented to make sure that the protocol is safe, because of course now we offer instant impermanent loss protection. We want to be sure that no one is trying to attack the protocol and use this impermanent loss protection to just run backrunning exploits and other stuff like that. Another way that we have to protect for this is a 0.25% cooldown, 0.25% withdrawal fee, and this goes to the protocol really. And it's used in very specific situations, but mainly, the protocol, as the token is mooning, so say Fox is mooning, you're a liquidity provider. If there's not enough liquidity in the pool, which would have happened in any decentralized exchange, you would have ended up with less forks than the pairing asset. So this, of course, happens on any decentralized exchange as well as Bancor, with the exception that we offer the impermanent loss protection. In these situations, we've realized that then we need to pitch to the DAO another increase to add more space to the pool and more folks to be able to be staked. On Bancor 3, we'll offer infinite single-sided staking. So some of the liquidity in the pool will be used for trading, some of the liquidity will be non-trading. We'll be coming up with strategies to use this non-trading liquidity in the future, but for now, the very first one that we're introducing in the first phase of Bancor 3 is flash loans. So to recap then, so Bancor 3 offers infinite single-sided staking and instant impermanent loss protection with the caveats of the 7-day cooldown period and the 0.25% withdrawal fee. On top of this, we also offer other features, but if anyone has a question now, I'll just check the chat and I can talk about these a little bit more. Just don't want to overwhelm you guys, but if there's no questions, I can continue.
I see we got Kent up here. I think that was an awesome overview of a lot of the innovations in Bancor V3, and I'm glad we're having this call. This is some really good alpha, and I'm super excited about the changes that you guys have included in this V3, and excited to dive into them a little bit deeper. I want to give Kent a chance to ask his question, and then before we dive too deep into the features, I was thinking it could be cool to kind of zoom out a little bit and just talk about like Bancor's history, because Bancor has such an awesome history and has been innovating in the DEX space for so long. But before we do that, I see we got Kent up here. We also got James. What's up, James? How you doing, dude?
Hey, Willie. Nice to hear you, my man. Nice to be here, guys.
Yeah, thanks for joining. Great to see you, man. We'll let Kent ask his question, and then you're up next, James.
Yeah, James, I love the way you stylized your name there. It looks very cool. And thanks for the overview, TFNS. Welcome to the DAO stage. I got to say, as somebody that's been in ETH for a while, I remember the Bancor ICO days and all those early days, and it's been fun to see you guys iterate and evolve. My question pertains to how you guys are implementing this impermanent loss protection. So, of course, not an issue in terms of the single-sided, but like, is this insurance fund, for lack of a better term, is this like, has Bancor allocated a certain percentage of BNT tokens for the purpose specifically of addressing or insuring against impermanent loss? I'm just confused about where that backing is coming from.
Yeah, of course. So you could say there are vaults that we tap into to pay for the impermanent loss. But of course, the way that we pay for it is from all the fees that the protocol accrues, because the protocol owns some of the BNT liquidity. So this means that if you look at the whole liquidity on the protocol, on Bancor, some of it is protocol owned and some of it is owned by any liquidity provider. With regards to how we pay for it, I think we have to understand that impermanent loss is a very individual problem. So this essentially means that you can be the same LP in a Fox pool and one of you has accrued a significant amount of impermanent loss and the other one hasn't. If you average them out, then you'll realize that impermanent loss, socializing the impermanent loss, is a good solution to essentially cover and offer this insurance in a way that will not damage the protocol in the long term. I would also want to add that in situations where we can't pay for the impermanent loss, we mint BNT. There's not really a treasury, but what we do is that BNT has an elastic supply. So we can burn and mint BNT. The protocol can burn and mint BNT. Some BNT will be minted in some situations. It doesn't happen all the time. It's only Fox moons a lot with regards to BNT, and even in those situations, we'll still make you whole via minting BNT and giving it to you. The protocol on Bancor 3 will still try to, as I said, sort of purchase some Fox to make sure that it pays you out as much as possible in Fox. And even if you can say, well, what about this BNT minting? Are you controlling it? We do have deflationary mechanisms as well built in. And the main one that we have, and you could call this an insurance premium, is that we have our vortex burner. So that's a whole behemoth in itself, but essentially it takes a cut of the fees that the protocol from all of the pools in the protocol. Right now it's at 15% of the fees, and it uses these fees to burn VBNT. So VBNT is the receipt that you get for staking BNT. What this means is that if you burn VBNT instead of burning BNT, instead of taking BNT directly out of circulation, what you're doing is you're locking BNT permanently in the protocol. So this is our way of simultaneously having sort of a deflationary mechanism for BNT, because the BNT that's owned by the protocol and locked in the protocol is not really in circulation. And also, it's a way for it's also a way for us to make sure that liquidity can be increased over time, because this VBNT is being burned every time the vortex burner is triggered, and the liquidity will of course grow over time because BNT is locked more in the protocol. On Bancor 3, this is even more interesting because now the vortex burner sort of becomes an active actor in the system, because running the vortex burner pays you out, so you get a percentage of these fees as well. This 15% you get it for running the vortex burner, and we're going to use now the vortex burner to allow gasless auto compounding of the fees and the rewards in the pool. So if you're a Fox holder, this means that you stake on Bancor 3, you get your BN Fox, which is your LP token, and you don't have to worry about anything else. So any swap that happens on Bancor, any fees that are accrued, even if there's a liquidity mining program active, all of those will auto compound gaslessly in the pool for you. There's that insurance premium that I talked about. And your LP tokens represent a single site stake, so only Fox. If in some situations some BNT might be minted, but you'll still be made whole. And they have no IL downside, so they're really good collateral, because if you staked however much Fox in the beginning, you'll get that, at least that, minus the withdrawal fee once you unstake, plus the fees and rewards over time.
Great, thanks for clarifying that. I'm only familiar with IL protection in the context of Thorchain. It sounds like what you guys do is similar, but there's some differences there as well. Appreciate you outlining those.
Yeah, Thorchain actually copied Bancor's impermanent loss protection model from V2, and now with V3, as far as I understand, Bancor's innovating now beyond what Thorchain currently offers.
Yeah, I think there are some similarities. There's also the difference that I don't think they mint Rune to pay out for the impermanent loss. There's a fund, or you could call it some treasury, that they take Rune out of to pay for the impermanent loss. But the way they vest the impermanent loss protection is very similar. I think it's more or less the same even. So the 100 days are 100%, and there's a 30-day cliff that you go to 30%.
Awesome.
Yeah.
Thanks, Tiago, and really excited to see James here. For those of you guys that don't know James, he's one of the co-founders of Toucan Protocol, and before that, he was a senior developer at Givix. So I'm a huge James fan and excited to see him here today. What's up, James?
I'm a big Willy fan, man. It's always great to talk to you, and yeah, exciting to be here. Tiago, a pleasure. I just recently did a deep dive into Bancor, so super excited to see what's happening here with ShapeShift DAO. And yeah, I mean, my question is perhaps kind of potentially deep, so feel free to post me to some docs or something. But I mean, like, it's quite simple for most of us to understand something like the Uniswap V2 pricing calculation, right? This like X by Y equals K. And I just wonder, like, if you can, by analogy or simple explanation, kind of give us an idea of how pricing like works in this case. I mean, especially with one-sided staking and like the minting and burning of BNT dynamically, etc. Yeah, I mean, if you could break that down simply, that would be exciting.
Yeah, of course. So the function that you're talking about, that still exists on Bancor. It's still a constant function market model. So you still have the 50% weights on each of the pools. However, on Bancor 3, we have a system that was inspired by Balancer, where it's sort of like a spreadsheet where you track the vault balances and the stake balances, but we still make sure that that curve is respected. So there's still a constant K X equals X times Y. But in this case, you think of the single-sided stake as sort of a co-stake with the protocol. So the BNT on the other side is also kept at 50%. What this means is that there's no concentrated liquidity like Uniswap v3. There's a normal bonding curve that you would see on something like Uniswap v2. This also means that, and this is something we've experimented with, that if you have concentrated liquidity, you naturally have concentrated IL because you're technically leveraging the liquidity in the pool. This we've noticed that it's a much more resilient model to continue building on the bonding curve that UniV2 sort of implements. Because the impermanent loss won't be too significant here, and we can make sure that the protocol is healthy and all the impermanent loss can be paid for.
Super cool, thank you. So I mean, if someone adds liquidity, then basically an equivalent amount of BNT is added in order to maintain the existing price, for example?
Yeah.
Okay, cool. Nice. I'll leave it there. I'm sure there's lots of questions. Just as an aside, as I'm leaving, the invitation link to your Discord is expired on your homepage, and I would love to get in there if possible. Yeah, just let you guys.
Of course, yeah.
Yeah,
I can send you that after the call, and I'll make sure that we fix that.
Nice one. Cool. Thanks. Love you, Willie. Thanks, Thiago. Talk to you later.
Thank you.
Love you. Thank you. Yeah, I guess following up on that, so that is really cool that with Bancor v3, there's no longer these caps. But I'm very curious, like, to really dig into how that works. So you mentioned it's like infinite single-sided staking. The DAO's got a lot of Fox in our treasury. We have some solid liquidity right now, but we're spending a lot on it. And one of our priorities is to decrease the amount that we're spending on liquidity and explore other alternatives that can give us that same liquidity at a lower price. What would happen right now? Like, could the DAO, once on May 11th, could we go deposit 200 million Fox into Bancor?
Yeah, I think we can step it back and think about how v2.1 embraces this whole trading liquidity. And what we do right now is you only have trading liquidity on Bancor v2.1. So this means that if the pool is full and you need to add space, then you need to add trading liquidity. So there's really no other option but to add trading liquidity that, of course, accrues IL. On Bancor 3, the conversation is a little bit different. So it becomes more, Fox can be staked at will, just any amount, it's infinite. And the conversation here starts being more, how much liquidity should be used for trading? So what is a healthy number here? Because, of course, you don't want too much liquidity that accrues significant impermanent loss, but you also don't want too little that will start hurting the price impact of swaps, and then no decent volume comes in and the protocol doesn't accrue significant fees. So there's definitely a trade-off here, and the conversation becomes more how much of the liquidity should be used for trading, and not so much, oh, we need more space, so let's add more trading liquidity.
Totally, I understand that. We probably wouldn't want to actually deposit 200 million Fox. That's more liquidity than we need, and there's an opportunity cost to the Fox. But how can Bancor have a permissionless protocol where anyone can create a token and add liquidity, and Bancor will pair it with Bancor with no cap? Like, how does that work as we get to infinity?
Yeah, of course. So because the non-trading liquidity is not really paired with BNT, so it's just think of it as just a vault. So the liquidity is there and it's not accruing IL. What the DAO decides then is how much of this liquidity is paired with BNT, and thus his IL accruing. For this, we have a very active DAO. I think if you check on Boardroom, I think we have the third most number of proposals. We are currently, I think, at 330. And this is because our DAO is constantly just proposing new limit increases. So we'll mostly take it from our side. We'll look at the pool, we'll look at other liquidity sources, and we'll suggest to you guys most of the times and just say, look, maybe we need more liquidity here, or maybe we can lower the trading liquidity limit because now we can increase it and decrease it at will. And then if this is something you're interested, then we always just pursue. And the Bancor DAO is essentially just an insurance manager and just risk assessor, and tries to make the best decision for the Bancor protocol, which is just to get as many fees as possible for the IL that is paying out. But really, this is also good for any token communities and any projects that are on Bancor, because of course you also want decent volume on the token, and everyone wants to get some decent fees on their stakes.
Got it. Do you guys have like a whitelist, I guess, at least for tokens that are eligible for this infinite single-sided staking?
Yeah, there's a whitelisting process. This usually involves checking the tokens meet our requirements. Our requirements are mostly technical right now, so it's just about checking the token contract, if it's upgradable, if you can freeze transfers, if there are fees on any transfer. We just look at sort of these because they're mostly technical, either technical limitations or technical requirements, because we wouldn't be comfortable listing a token that might pose unnecessary risk to the health of the protocol.
Okay, got it. That makes sense and helps, I think, ease a lot of like my imaginary concerns for what could go wrong in a worst case scenario in this dark forest where we always have to be ready for bad actors trying to rug us. For all the token requirements, but are you worried about them kind of gaming the system so that they are basically like abusing their, like maybe even doing some sort of price manipulation to push the price of their token up, and then removing their liquidity to get Bancor tokens as impermanent loss protection, and then using that Bancor to then adding more liquidity, using that Bancor to then drive the price back up, and then repeating? Is that something that you guys have considered, and do you have any protections in place against them?
Yeah. So we have a couple of protections, and also the first thing that we do is from the token requirements, we immediately check some situations that would put the protocol at risk. In this situation that you talked about, for example, if a token contract can't be upgradable, then at least we know that someone can just go and upgrade the token contract and just make it so that it's malicious for the system and BNT is minted unnecessarily. And this is, of course, something we're concerned with. Another thing that we do is we have our own internal price oracle. So on Bancor 3, we don't really. So on Bancor v2.1, when you swap link to ETH, there's a link to BNT and BNT to ETH swap. On Bancor 3, really, BNT is only used as a virtual asset to price them. So we have our own, say, internal oracle. We have an EMA as well. So comparing our moving average to our spot price is something that we do a lot of the times, and this is make sure that is it okay to add trading liquidity now? Is it suspicious that they're too different? Should we do it? Should we not do it now? So for this, we also implement stuff like circuit breakers, which already are implemented on v2.1. And this is all because security is paramount for Bancor, as you can understand, right? When you try to cover something like impermanent loss, it's a really big concern that we make sure that no one manipulates the system and the pricing of the assets, because that might be very damaging.
Cool. I'm glad to hear you guys are thinking about this, and yeah, great answers for how you're implementing protections. Very cool. I guess, yeah, what's your biggest fear for V3? You're launching a new protocol. There's a lot of really awesome but innovative, let's say, experimental changes. What's your like biggest fear for something that could potentially go wrong with the V3 launch?
I would say that I think you mentioned that we are seeing more and more now layers of protocols being built on top of others, and as good as this can be, I can see some of them being sort of, you could consider them a governance attack. I think this could be a big concern, and this is not just a concern for Bancor. This is a concern for a lot of protocols, especially some with flakier DAOs, that someone could just easily manipulate all of the votes and push any proposal that they would want. But this would be my main concern, and a reason why I think we should very much incentivize voting and continue being such an active DAO. Just make sure that the Bancor DAO is aligned and they're educated on the risks and make fair risk assessments. If this doesn't happen, I think it'd be quite damaging. And this is something that we really are keen on incentivizing.
Yeah, great point. I always think about like the protocol risk, but when these protocols are governed by DAOs, the governance attack risk is just as real. And I definitely expect that we'll see an increase in these types of attacks going forward. I saw a funny tweet this past weekend where someone was like, "Oh, I'm feeling cute. I'm going to go make some proposals to DAOs, asking for like a ridiculous amount of money and see if they pass."
Definitely, yeah. And I find even more dangerous because when you start seeing these layers on top of the governance, they really happen not because of the way the governance of protocols is made most of the times. I think they really happen because governance is automated. So you can build a platform on top of it that will just do all of use the automation in its favor and make sure that it can manipulate the votes and extract as much value as possible from the system.
Totally. Yeah, it's very much why we're practicing progressive decentralization. And we have right now with ShapeShiftDAO, we do have the ability for proposals to automatically execute transactions on chain without any human interaction. Token holders can do that autonomously. But we also have this like multi-sig safeguard in place in the event that a governance attack does happen. So obviously we want to get rid of that multi-sig eventually, but it's it's up to the community to decide when we're comfortable to do that.
That reminds me of the recent governance attack from was it
Beanstalk?
Yeah. But I think that was because as soon as you reached quorum on a proposal, you can immediately execute it without a multi-sig, and I think someone just did that.
That was a really poor sign.
Yeah, it was crazy. Super easy to do as well.
And that's a perfect example for where you shouldn't necessarily rush into decentralization. As long as you're transparent with your community about the remaining points of centralization, you have a plan to get rid of them. That's okay, right? And going fully decentralized on day one, it's a noble mission, but there's a lot of risks and challenges that come along with it.
Yeah, exactly. And I think especially with the ShapeShift community, because you guys are very, very decentralized, it's great to see such an active community because that is so paramount for the security as well of the system. So much that we tend to not think about it that much until we see a governance attack and go, oh, okay. So things can get really wrong.
So true. We're blessed to have a diligent community, vigilant. I don't know. All right, I want to circle back to talking about Bancor, and I think ultimately, like the decision that we as a community need to make is: do we want to, apply to Bancor for whitelisting on V3? Do we want to potentially deposit some of the DAO's funds, some of the DAO's Fox, single-sided into Bancor V3 as an alternative to liquidity mining? And I think there's been some discussion around potentially even partnering with Bancor on like a liquidity mining program to reward users. I think both in Bancor and Fox, right? It'd be dual rewards for providing liquidity. Cool.
Yeah, so I just want to clarify as well that so Fox is already whitelisted on V2.1, and we've grandfathered all of the whitelistings for Bancor 3. And this is because our DAO has already approved the whitelisting, and also we've already gone through the token requirements check, so everything is okay and safe, and we can just keep the whitelisted status for Fox. So as soon as Bancor 3 is launched, there will be a Fox pool. And the good thing about Bancor, I think, is that it's very straightforward and very simple, and you can withdraw at any time. So for treasury stakes, I think this is ideal because you don't have to commit Fox funds that you will never get anymore because you've now just started a liquidity mining campaign that you've locked Fox tokens, and this happens in a lot of protocols. And you can't just roll this back and just pick something else. I think it's good to let this option be open, and as a DAO, you might want to just change your mind and choose to deploy the funds elsewhere, which is totally fine. So it would be just a perfectly simple stake, and you can just withdraw at any time. And I think that's something that we are really striving to be, just a very more transparent liquidity provisioning experience, I think. So for the dual liquidity mining campaign, this is something that we're running at launch for Bancor 3, and this is to incentivize migration and also just sort of bootstrap our pool and make sure that, as you said, for the model to work and for us to be able to pay out the impermanent loss, we of course need as much volume as possible. We are at X, so this is paramount for us. So we'll be running a dual liquidity mining campaign where we match any liquidity mining that you commit to the pool with an equivalent amount of BNT. So there's a limit for the BNT. It's 50,000 BNT, which will be emitted over 24 months. So this is roughly $100,000 right now. It's not massive, but it's already been pre-approved by our DAO, so we don't have to do anything from our side. And from your side, if you wanted to do so, so long as the proposal was passed, you could just deploy the liquidity mining rewards and we'd do the matching side for you. Then the last thing that I also wanted to say is that liquidity mining on Bancor 3 is a little bit different, and I think very innovative if you think about it. Because instead of just giving Fox to all of the LPs in the pool. If you want to give liquidity mining rewards, in this case ShapeShift would just stake with your multi-sig Fox in the pool, and you'd get BN Fox, right? So the same way the DAO would have BN Fox, any liquidity provided in the pool also has BN Fox. So what happens then for us to do the liquidity mining is that we burn this BN Fox to increase the valuation and the share of the liquidity, the fees and rewards of all the other LPs. And that's how we can also do it gaslessly, because they don't have to worry. They have the BN Fox. As you're burning the BN Fox from that Fox stake, that's increasing the stakes, the valuation of all the other LPs in the pool. And I think it's very interesting, because this means that Fox that you've just committed for the liquidity mining rewards becomes instantly liquid, so it can be used for swapping immediately. So they're not just being unused and waiting to be claimed or restaked or whatever. They're immediately part of the liquidity, auto compounded gaslessly.
Oh wow, that is super cool. And yeah, that explains, I guess, the auto compounding of the liquidity mining rewards, and very cool that users don't have to like stake their liquidity pool token or claim the rewards, and then either compound them, pay more gas to do that, or as we often see with liquidity mercenaries, just dump the rewards for another token. So
exactly.
That's very
and
cool.
I think the last one is very interesting. Yeah, that you said it, because you look at these auto compounders, and what they're doing really is just dumping one of the tokens for the other, right? So they tend to be very mercenary, just like you said. Yeah.
Totally. Yeah. I was a big fan of the Pickle Fox ETH pool, but for sure that was the way that they achieved auto compounding was taking half the Fox rewards and selling them for ETH. So I definitely like the way that you guys have implemented liquidity mining for V3.
Yeah, and I think this, along with the impermanent loss protection, also means that you don't give liquidity mining rewards for the sake of, maybe the LPs will accrue a lot of impermanent loss, let's just try and make up for it. You offer liquidity mining rewards on top of the impermanent loss protection. So they become much more, I think, transparent as well, because you know that the community is getting these tokens, any LP in the pool is getting these tokens, and it's not just a way to compensate for the insane risk that you get with staking any protocol.
Yeah, it's very cool. I know from my DGen experiences, you will almost consistently see that anytime that a protocol is offering both a pool 2 liquidity mining program as well as single-sided staking, they'll typically have like 5x the APR for the pool 2 program. And a big part of that is the impermanent loss that the depositors are expected to experience. And so it's very cool that you guys, like, we should be able to offer a lower APR and to still entice the same amount of liquidity for a single-sided staking, and then still get that get the liquidity that we need. In fact, we'll get double the liquidity, because instead of users providing Fox and Ether, it's going to be single-sided staking Fox. And that should be an awesome. I think that would be an awesome addition to our current farming programs, and potentially a great solution as we work to wean off of the really expensive liquidity mining program we have running on Uniswap V2 right now.
Yeah, it's just cheaper on Bancor 3 right now. Like you said, there's so many things that will make it cheaper. Both the single-sided staking, you don't have to sell any Fox tokens, will sort of match you in a way, right? You can grow the liquidity very easily. The fact that the dual liquidity mining rewards become instantly liquid if you choose to start a dual liquidity mining program. And also, again, just the fact that if you choose to change your mind and the DAO is not interested in being staked on Bancor anymore, you can leave at any time. And I think this should be reinforced, because I'm finding more and more now protocols just sort of expect you to lock, and you see all these V models, and they, of course, they have some advantages, and it's good that we're experimenting with these. But at the same time, it just sort of locks these protocols and everyone that wants to incentivize a pool to just have no other option but now to have this pool there, because now we're locked, basically.
Totally. Well, I think, Tiago, you've done a really fantastic job of giving us an overview of Bancor V3 and making a case for why the DAO should participate. I've been, a lot of my questions and concerns have been really well addressed, and I see a lot of benefits to moving this forward to governance. But I'm just one Fox, so I'd love to hear from other Foxes. Now's your chance to ask the Bancor team directly any questions you guys have about whether the DAO should deposit into Bancor V3, how this all impermanent loss protection works, whether we should also couple this with a liquidity mining program. I'd be in favor of, I think, all of the above, but really curious to hear if Foxes have any other questions or concerns while we've got Tiago right here. One question while I'll stall a little bit. Oh, here we go. This one's from Ron. Ron says, if you were ShapeShift, what would you suggest that we do, Tiago?
Well, just from your app, I know that you have your DeFi section. If you, on the earn side, it'd be great if you want to just add more Bancor strategies. This is what I would do with my background on Bancor. And my immediate suggestion.
I love that suggestion. Yeah.
Yeah, I just have to say that I love the fact that you default to dark mode. Just one of my favorite things.
Of course. What do you think? We're crazy, psychopath?
Exactly.
Okay, I love that idea. And to your point, we have this Yearn integration. That's the first of very many. We want to integrate all the single-sided staking protocols into that same UI UX. That single-sided staking abstraction is in progress right now and is going to make it very easy for us to add new single-sided staking protocols. And I think Bancor, you're absolutely right. Like Bancor should be one of the top protocols we're considering for that, because that would give us single-sided staking yield for so many ERC20 tokens, more than like any other protocol I can think of right now. So I love that. Like, and I would love to. The cool thing about this, like, you guys can either Bancor can come do the work for this, or we could talk about putting up like a bounty. And I think this would be the type of bounty that we'd be interested in partnering with you guys on. Like, obviously up to the community, but yeah, if you guys put up some Bancor for this integration, I would vote to put up some Fox to match that bounty so we can get you guys integrated.
Oh, that'd be great. I know that you guys use DWork. Is that where you are currently listing all the bounties?
DWork is where we put up like one-off bounty issues. I'll post the link in the stage chat right now for where the process for offering like a larger bounty. So we had like Osmosis, Yat, Perp, have all offered like bounties of around like $250,000, I would say on average, to get integrated. So I think we could do Bancor for a lot cheaper because we've got the single-sided staking abstraction. But for these bigger features, we have a whole process for basically like offering the bounty to the community, and then our product and engineering work streams will support you guys in finding like developers in the broader community, and then support those developers and actually like getting the whole feature into production.
Yeah, sounds great. I'll circulate this internally, but I got all the links that you sent me. This is super interesting. Thank you.
Yeah, I'd love for you guys to be kind of a guinea pig for the first. We're trying to lock down this single-sided staking abstraction. I've already got Yearn, Foxy, Atom, potentially Idle Finance, and then Bancor. So like, love for you guys to take a look at the abstraction that we've written and provide any comments there as well as to like how Bancor like would or wouldn't fit into that abstraction, because ideally it should be super simple for a protocol like you guys to come along and do one PR to write like the adapter to the ABI, and then just another PR to do the UI side of things and kind of drop it straight in.
Yeah, sounds great. Thank you. Definitely will pursue this and let you guys know. Does this involve any proposals on your DAO, or we just add a bounty? Just if you could walk me through the process just briefly, then it'll make it easier when I look at it.
No proposal required to offer a bounty or to even just integrate yourselves. But if you are requesting Fox to go along with it, there would be a proposal required for that to get Fox from the treasury. But we could also, I think, help you guys out with that. If you were offering a bounty from your treasury, I'd be happy to support you guys in getting the proposal up on our end.
Yeah, that sounds great. Yeah, definitely something that, of course, we'd also have to propose to our Bancor DAO. We also have our own governance process, right? But yeah, it's very interesting. Thank you.
Do you guys have any kind of affiliate revenue programs? I could see it being a little bit difficult with Bancor's current model, but assuming that we do this integration and we drive a ton of TVL or even trades to Bancor, is there any opportunity for the ShapeShift DAO to earn affiliate revenues for the revenues that our users generate on Bancor?
I'm not entirely sure about these programs because I think we usually don't run them, as in we're all just sort of community members, even the ones that are core contributors. So as we are a DAO, some of the times we can do these referral affiliate programs, but definitely something that I can just have a look at and let you know. Because right now I don't have an exact answer. But also another thing that I want to say is we don't really have a treasury. There was a reason for this. It's just internally we decided it's much more regulatory friendly. We do tread very lightly around this, and we don't have a treasury right now. But this doesn't mean that we can, of course, just get our DAO to incentivize the pool or just find another way to pay for the bounty, and even just minting BNT is also something that we can do. It just has to go through a proposal, of course, because ultimately we're a DAO, and even someone like me, I'm just a core contributor and a community member.
Totally. That is so interesting. I did not know that Bancor didn't have a treasury. So basically, like, instead of making proposals to execute transactions from like an OSO Safe, for instance, you guys are like executing proposals on the Bancor token contract, or on a contract that has the ability to mint or burn Bancor tokens from the Bancor token contract?
We come from the early 2017 era where we have a foundation that that then just tries to have the best interests in mind for Bancor and develops the platform. The foundation is the one responsible for funding all of the core contributors and wherever is needed. So they will also just facilitate this, and this is where we get our BNT from. So we don't mint for these sort of operational costs, but of course we mint them for liquidity mining campaigns. Whenever there's a buyback program that is moved to Bancor, it's also a situation where you can discuss adding BNT liquidity mining rewards. If there's an integration as well, we also usually have a proposal to also incentivize it and add liquidity mining rewards to the pool. These are all minted, yeah.
Okay, cool. Super fascinating. Thanks for explaining.
Yeah, thank you.
So one question I do have, I want to understand this impermanent loss insurance. So I think I understand it pretty well. If Fox token price goes up and the liquidity provider would have less Fox tokens, they basically get Bancor after like a 7-day cooldown that they can use to, if they wanted to, they could use to buy back Fox to be made whole. Do I understand that part correctly?
Yeah, so the 7-day cooldown period is just a protection. So the mechanism would have worked regardless, even if this wasn't in place. And as if you say Fox is mooning, it's mooning too much in the sense that there's not much BNT in the pool, so not much Fox in the pool, sorry. This means that, of course, we'd have to mint BNT to make you whole. In some situations where this isn't that much, then the protocol can buy Fox and make sure that it pays you fully in Fox, because it essentially thinks that if you're going to be paid as well in BNT in equivalent amount, you'll just end up swapping it back for Fox. So might as well just have the protocol do it itself and pay you off as much as possible in the tokens that you're long on.
Cool. That makes sense. I see we got John up here. Real quick before John's question, the second part of my question is I want to understand what happens exactly if Fox price moves the other way. Does the users, do they get more Fox? How can you just walk us through exactly what happens? Like, let's say a user, the price of Fox has gone down after they single staked and then they're withdrawing. Do they just get more Fox, or how does that work?
Oh, this is the easiest scenario. So in this case, there is a Fox surplus in the pool. So whenever someone unstakes, there's enough Fox to cover your stake. So you will get your initial liquidity. You will get your fees that you've accrued throughout as long as you've been staked. You'll also get any rewards if there was a liquidity mining campaign active in the pool, minus the 0.25% withdrawal fee, all in Fox.
Awesome. So you do end up with more Fox, even aside from the trading fees and from the rewards. You end up with more Fox just from the impermanent loss. Is that right?
Exactly.
Okay.
Yeah,
cool.
And this is where I was saying that you can sort of think as it as vaults in a way, because if BNT is mooning, then we'll just end up with a lot of Fox. But this is okay, because this just means that we have enough Fox to cover everyone and pay out all of the liquidity providers and make sure that they get all of their Fox back with no impermanent loss.
Sweet. All right, John, welcome to the stage.
Hey, John.
Oh, John, if you're talking, we cannot hear you. This happens about every 6th time John gets on stage.
Hey, you hear me now?
Hey. Yeah, we can hear you.
Yeah. It never works the first time lately for me. But hey, yeah, I've been listening. This has been a great conversation, and thanks for coming and chatting with us. Definitely learned a lot about Bancor through this, and it's super helpful. I kind of have 2 questions. So the first is just, I think we've talked about this a little bit with you, but I want to know if you guys have considered or have talked at all with the tokamak team, because an ideal thing for ShapeShift, in my opinion, would be we already have a bunch of Fox locked up in tokamak. If we could just direct that to Bancor, basically just do liquidity direction that way, that would be a really awesome way for us to do this. But I don't know if you guys have talked with them or if it's on their roadmap to add Bancor as an option. But I think
we had an initial chat. Yeah. Oh, sorry.
I was going to say, I think this would go right in lines with them, because this would actually help that. The impermanent loss protection would likely help them.
Yeah, I think they also protect you against impermanent loss. I am familiar with the tokamak model, but I'm just not familiar with their most recent. I think they just launched a reactor recently, something like that. I'm not super familiar with it yet, but yeah, this is something that of course we can do. I think for them it makes sense, like you said. They offer single-sided staking. We offer single-sided staking. They offer impermanent loss protection, I think, and we also offer impermanent loss protection. So it's really just a layer connecting to Bancor, I think.
Yeah, I think that's my point. Is like, so right now they have multiple options. So like right now, anyone with any toke can go vote for the Fox reactor, which has a lot of Fox in it, and they can direct liquidity to various pools. Right now, the biggest one is the Uniswap pool. There's also Sushi and some other ones on there. If Bancor was on there, I think the DAO could consider directing a lot of its Fox that's already in there directly to Bancor. So that would be the most ideal from my perspective for the DAO. I'm just curious if that's something that could happen. It doesn't mean we can't make a direct deposit either, but that would benefit everyone, I think, if that became possible.
Yeah, I think both worlds is probably the best. Where you can have the Bancor direct stake, and you can also have the tokamak one. I understand that if you go through tokamak, of course, you get more rewards on top of it. It is a layer on top of Bancor, and would be a layer on top of Bancor, and of course incentivized with liquidity mining rewards. So you would get the toke as well, and you can even do the dual liquidity mining rewards. This is something we can brainstorm, of course, to make sure that it fits your needs. I do find that, and again, this is to reinforce the idea that if you choose to stake on Bancor directly, and if you want to, if you change your mind, then you can always unstake, and Bancor will not force you to lock your tokens in any way, even if you want more emissions. This is not something we currently have. So you're just open to change your mind as well. At which point, of course, adding more layers in some cases might be interesting. In this case, of course, you get extra benefits on top of the rewards, but it's not ideal in some situations.
Yeah, that all makes sense. Yeah, I think it would make us much more likely to, again, we just already have a lot of liquidity there, and we could direct it pretty easily if it existed. So something to think about. But the second question is just like, a lot of this sounds really cool, and really appreciate everything you've gone through. What are the biggest concerns that you think we should watch out for as a DAO, or like what are the risks that maybe we haven't talked about? I'm hearing a lot of good things, but I'm a little confused as to what the risks are. Are there really like very, other than smart contract risk, which there always is there very little risk of the DAO, depositing a large amount of Fox? This part I don't still fully understand.
I would say that if you want to call it risk, the situation where we talked before, that if Fox moons a lot and we have to pay out in BNT, is a risk. But of course, you can always just swap this BNT for Fox, and Bancor 3 implements a lot of safeguards with this respect in the rebalancing mechanisms that we have, and the way the withdrawal mechanism works. So I think Bancor 3 is much more robust in processing this risk of just having to, mint BNT and pay you in BNT. Apart from this, like you said, smart contract risk, of course, we have 4 audits underway, and we have a public bounty right now and a very extensive test coverage. So we're trying to be as safe as possible in this respect as well. Of course, if you want to be on the safe side because you're a treasury, I also always advise just going through coverage protocols. We will be supporting some coverage protocols soon after Bancor 3 is launched and we start getting more audit reports out so that they can look at them. But yeah, this is where I see that you could have some risk here.
Yeah, appreciate you acknowledging this, Tiago. I agree with John. I think like Bancor and Tokamak just seem like a match made in heaven. I think like if I encourage you guys just to have that conversation as soon as you can, because I imagine the Tokamak team would be pretty excited about what you guys are offering, and I think you guys would be pretty excited about it. I think partnering with them would be a great way to attract liquidity to Bancor at no or at a minimal cost to the Bancor protocol. But I agree that in the meantime, I think Marley makes a great point that the Tokamak liquidity, we got a lot of Fox in there, but only a small portion of it has actually been deployed so far, and they're slowly rolling out their liquidity deployment. So yeah, Bancor, the benefit of instant liquidity and just being able to kind of see how that strategy works in tandem with the Tokamak strategy, I think it'd be a worthwhile experiment. And we got a lot of Fox that we could leverage to at least try this out.
Yeah, that'd be great. And like I said, if you change your mind, this is something that we support, especially if you stake directly. I noticed that someone asked about the risks of liquidity through Tokamak, through Bancor, and I just wanted to mention one thing before. I noticed that you have a question, right? Sorry. That is, of course, there's increased smart contract risk in this case because you have to go to multiple levels. So if there's a problem with Tokamak or a problem with Bancor, then that's much more likely to happen than just a problem with Bancor or just a problem with Tokamak. That's just probability. So I just wanted to address that.
Appreciate that. And yeah, something for the community to consider too, and then I'll pass it over to Rez for a question, is like with Foxy, the first version of Foxy is built on top of Tokamak, but the future plans are to enable other strategies as well. And depending on how if we go forward with this experiment, and if it goes well, Bancor would be a potential candidate for another source of yield, as well as like deploying the staked Fox into liquidity pools next to Tokamak. So I think there's some extra value to learning from the experiment too.
For sure, I was having that same thought that long term, if the APR is attractive at all, then the Foxy contract could do direct deposits to Bancor, which would also help us increase the liquidity and also diversify the revenue streams backing Foxy. So definitely interesting to keep an eye on.
Yeah, that sounds very interesting. And as we deploy, if the proposal passes and you deploy liquidity, happy to give you updates on the pool's performance and just make sure that we're aligned with how much liquidity you want in the pool as well, because it's important to look at other liquidity sources and make sure that we have enough liquidity in the pool to incentivize volume.
100%. Appreciate that, Tiago. All right, Rez, thanks for your patience. We got just enough time for your question.
Yeah, sure. Can you hear me?
Yeah.
Yes, that was your. I'm just kidding. Yeah.
So, follow-up question on risks. Since all of the liquidity pairs are paired with BNT, what would be like this critical situation of BNT's value collapsing for whatever reason? How would that affect the viability of the protocol? Is this a realistic risk in any way?
Yeah, well, like I said, I said in the past that BNT's price and having deflationary mechanisms is important. Of course, BNT collapsing would mean that we would have excess BNT on all of the pools on Bancor, and it's something that we try to be on the safe side of. We do have mechanisms in place to prevent something like this happening. So the first one would be that we stop trading in the pools if the price... if there's a circuit breaker, if the spot price is very different than the EMA, which would be the case in this situation because the EMA is not always updated. And this is one of the mechanisms. Then the other one that we have is liquidity in the pools. The trading side is only increased if the EMA and the spot price are within a certain range. So the protocol would essentially stop adding more liquidity to the pools naturally. And this is another mechanism that we have in place on top of the vortex burner that locks BNT forever in the protocol and tries to be this deflationary mechanism that keeps BNT value in check.
Yeah. Okay, that actually makes a lot of sense. So, cool. Thank you for the answer.
Yeah, thank you very much.
Yeah, thank you, everybody. Great questions today. Great answers, Thiago. You've been an awesome representative for the Bancor community. And yeah, I'm looking forward to moving this to the governance process.
Thanks so much. It's great to be here. I often pop around here because I love that you guys have a Portuguese community. And I was seeing everyone speaking Portuguese, so I just wanted to say hola to everyone that's here and speaks Portuguese.
Yes, bom dia, amigos. I'm also just loving to see this LATAM community explode. It's been really awesome. Yeah. So have you been hearing about ShapeShift just in the Portuguese community, like outside of the ShapeShift community? Have you seen us? See, okay, so props to the Smith and to Vlad and to Crusher. Yeah, I've noticed it too, and it's really awesome to see the potential that DAOs bring for scaling global communities. It's something that, hands down, in my mind, we're able to do much more effectively as a DAO than we were as a centralized organization. So awesome to see, and appreciate you, LATAM.
Yeah, thanks so much. Let's replace GM with BD, I think.
Yes, bom dia, amigos.
Bom dia.
All right, thanks, Thiago. I'll talk to you soon. Thanks, everybody.